Dear listeners, welcome back to a new episode of Oliver the Time Traveler. This time Oliver and Isabella didn't go back in time, but find themselves right now in the very future. They have successfully made their way to a location near Mars in the year 4361. Still, they do not know exactly where they are, and must also find out where the next watcher is. Let's not wait any longer and let's go on with the tale. Oliver and Isabella look around. Oliver points at one door at the end of the steel tunnel and says, "Shall we try that one, Isabella? This doesn't look like a village or a city, and what surprises me is that it is so quiet. There must be a person around here somewhere, I hope." Isabella says, "I am happy we made it safely, but that giant red ball outside, is that really Mars?" Oliver again takes a look through one of the windows and says, "Well, Isabella, I have no doubt. If the watch and the maps haven't lied to us, then indeed we are looking at planet Mars. I still can't believe my own eyes, but I guess it is true." And then Oliver asks, "Are you afraid, Isabella?" Isabella says, "Not really, although on the other hand, we are not sure who we are going to meet over here. I mean, I don't have a clue where we are, do you?" Oliver answers, "I guess that this must be some sort of space station, Isabella. In my time in the year 2022, we always heard stories and news about a man named Elon and his special wish to go to Mars. It is highly possible that this is one of his inventions. But this is the year 4361, I don't expect him around here, I think. Come on, Isabella, let's see if we can open that door and see what's behind it." When Isabella and Oliver start walking towards the door, they hear a dry click and the door slides open. Through the door steps a figure dressed in a white overall carrying a toolbox. When the man sees Oliver and Isabella, his mouth drops open and freezes like a statue, as caught in the moment of movement. And then he asks, "Are you real?" Oliver takes the lead by answering, "Oh, absolutely, we are really real. My name is Oliver. And this is Isabella. I guess nice to meet you. Can you please tell us where we are exactly?" The man looks back at Oliver and Isabella without saying a single word. And then his gaze shifts to the watch that he notices on Oliver's wrist. He points at the watch and says, "That thing, I do not wish to touch that again." And then, after a few moments of thinking, the man continues, but with a relieved look on his face, and says, "I am so terribly sorry. Where are my manners? How rude of me. But my name is Yuri Koslov to be precise. It would be stupid to ask how the two of you got here, because now I have seen the watch. I think we have a lot to explain to each other, but let me tell you first where you are. This is Space Home 4, and as you can see, we do have a lot of space around here." And he bursts out with laughter. Yuri wipes some tears from his eyes and then continues with a grin. "We are in one of the space stations that are floating around Mars. This is an observatory center, and we are always in contact with the people who are living in the base in Mars." Oliver and Isabella's eyes widen, and Isabella asks astonished, "Persons living inside of Mars?" Yuri grins again and says, "Yes indeed, Isabella, it is impossible to live on Mars. After research, men discovered that it was more easy to live inside of Mars than on the surface. So there we are, gently floating through space without bothering anyone, in a giant capsule to be able to study Mars from the outside. We are in a giant observatory, isn't it great?" Oliver says, "It's incredible how far we've come." Yuri nods in agreement and says, "But that's not all, because there are already people on their way to the next planet. We're not waiting in silence, so to speak." He then laughs heartily. "Which planet is the next one where people might try to live?" Isabella asks, and Yuri responds, "The next planet is Venus. Hopefully it will be a great success. They are all particularly vast distances, but not as vast as time travel, of course. We have a lot to discuss, it seems, but..." Isabella interrupts Yuri and asks, "How far is it from here to Venus in kilometers?" Yuri begins to explain. The distance between Venus and Mars varies because both planets move in their orbits around the Sun, and their positions relative to each other constantly change. On average, the distance between Venus and Mars is about 1.7 astronomical units. An astronomical unit is the average distance between the Earth and the Sun, which is approximately 149.6 million kilometers. So, do the math. And Yuri smiles as he continues. At the moment, I'm here with my wife, who is currently working on the other side of the research center. We don't really pay much attention to guests here because there's a lot of coming and going, and there's always the need to transport supplies between Mars and here. And, I have to admit, it's enjoyable working here, better than on Earth when I left all those years ago. But, my story can wait till another moment. If I may ask, what year do you all come from, anyway? Because judging by your clothing, you definitely don't seem to be from this time. Oliver chuckles and says, "You're absolutely right, we had no idea what kind of clothing to bring for this time. It was quite risky for us because we didn't know in advance what we'd be getting into or whether we could even breathe normally. But fortunately, everything turned out fine. And I suspect we're looking for you, Yuri." And Oliver continues. It's remarkable because, in the past, to rescue people trapped in time, I've only traveled back in time, and this is the first time we've traveled forward. What an incredible experience once again. But in short, dear Yuri, Isabella is from the year 1922, and I traveled from the year 2022. I once found this watch in the library in my village, and during my time travels I met Isabella, and she has stayed with me ever since. By now, nothing is unusual for Yuri, since he suddenly found himself on Mars. But Yuri stares in disbelief at Oliver, knowing that everything he's hearing is true. But Oliver continues and says, "Where Isabella and I just came from is Japan in the year 1982, before that, we were in 776 BC. It's incredible for us as well, witnessing everything that's happening." Isabella chimes in and says, "Oliver rescued me from Leiden, where I was trapped in time in the year 1574. The city was under siege, and Oliver and I just witnessed its liberation. But Yuri, where are you originally from?" Yuri, still looking amazed at Isabella and Oliver, runs a hand through his hair and begins to tell his story. "I was born in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. My parents are Russian, they moved from St. Petersburg to Rotterdam." Yuri continues. "I found the watch while I was working in the port. It suddenly appeared on the dock where I was working. But Isabella, to answer your question, I disappeared from the Netherlands in the year 4357, and now it's already 4361. Time flies when you are having fun." Yuri laughs again and says, "For now, we've talked enough. If you walk with me, we can head to the living area and have a seat, continue our conversation, and maybe grab something to eat. The food computer is always on, so we can choose whatever we fancy." "Come on, this way," says Yuri. Together, they pass through the sliding door where Yuri had entered first. In front of them is a staircase leading downwards. Everything around them is immaculate, and in the distance, they can hear the hum of a fan. At the bottom of the first flight of stairs, there is a platform with a large window. The three of them gaze out at the planet Mars. Oliver and Isabella can hardly believe their eyes as they observe the red planet and the storms raging across its surface. It's a spectacular sight, and Isabella asks Yuri, "What an incredibly beautiful sight, but how many people are living on Mars now?" Yuri replies, saying, "At the moment, there are about 20,000 people on Mars, and exactly 100 people are on their way to Venus." "Unbelievable," says Oliver. "What an incredible organization." Yuri descends the second flight of stairs, and Oliver and Isabella follow him. At the bottom of the stairs, they walk through a small hallway, and another door slides open, revealing a stunning living space. In one corner, they see sofas, and on the other side of the room, a small waterfall flows. The room is spacious, as they notice something resembling a kitchen in the opposite corner. Additionally, There is a large dining table with 8 chairs and a vase of flowers on it. Oliver and Isabella can't believe their eyes. Yuri notices that Isabella and Oliver are looking around in amazement, and he sees Isabella slowly walking toward the large window, where there is an unbelievably beautiful view. Isabella says, "The stars and planets, all of it, this is so unimaginable." Yuri chuckles and says, "Feel free to sit on that comfortable couch over there, you'll have a great view of the cosmos. Make yourselves comfortable, and tell me, would you like something to eat or drink? We don't have a delivery from Mars at the moment, it's coming later. I'll keep an eye on the door for that. But, what are you up to?" Yuri asks. "We have everything at our disposal here. I can imagine you have no idea, but I've learned from history books that in your time, people had food in tubes when they went into space." Yuri laughs again and continues. "Everything was so primitive in your time, but here we have the dinner comp. It's an incredibly handy device because it makes whatever you crave. So, go ahead and name something." Isabella laughs and says, "When we were in Leiden, once we were outside the city walls, we had a delicious dish of potatoes, carrots, and onions. It was cooked in a large pot hanging over the fire in the camp of the fleeing Spaniards. I really don't know what it's called or anything, but it tasted wonderful. It had probably been on the fire for hours because it was very tender. Can the computer make something like that?" Yuri looks surprised at Isabella and says, "Whether the dinner comp can make something like that? This should be easy, I've had more challenging requests. And you, Oliver? What would you like to eat?" Oliver says, "I still have a few sandwiches from 1982 in my bag. They were freshly made this morning." All three burst into laughter, and Oliver continues, saying, "No kidding, I hate to throw them away, and maybe you'd like to try one. But Isabella's idea sounds very tempting. Shall we just put everything on the table? I'm really curious if that computer can recreate what we had in Leiden back then." Yuri nods and says, "That's a very sensible idea, Oliver, and I'm certainly curious about a fresh 1982 sandwich. Are they really from Japan? Stay seated, and let's see if the computer can do something with those carrots and onions from you." And as Yuri takes a seat on a couch, he says to the ceiling, "Dinner comp, we need your help." Out of nowhere, a friendly voice responds. "Good day, Yuri, tell me please, how can I assist you?" Isabella almost falls off the couch in astonishment and looks around to locate the source of the voice. Oliver chuckles and says to Isabella, "Welcome to the future, Isabella, where computers take care of a lot of tasks." Yuri continues, addressing the dinner comp as he talks toward the ceiling. "Somewhere in the year 1574, there was a dish in the Netherlands with potatoes, onions, and carrots. Can you do something with that information?" Once again, the voice comes from nowhere. "Certainly, Yuri, this is a traditional old Dutch dish, also known as stamppot or hutspot, and it's still enjoyed today. When should the dish be ready?" Oliver and Isabella exchange glances and fall momentarily silent. Yuri says, "We're going to set up some items on the table, so please have it ready for 3 persons in 2 minutes." Yuri looks at Oliver and Isabella and says, "Convenient, isn't it? We don't even have to think about doing the dishes. This way, we have more time to spend studying Mars or just relaxing." Quickly, Yuri places some glasses on the table and sets a glass decanter filled with water next to them, saying, "The water from Mars tastes delicious. In fact, we hardly drink anything else here. It's remarkable, but even champagne, for example, is rarely consumed because Mars water tastes so incredibly good. Come, let's sit down at the table, the food will appear shortly." Isabella and Oliver sit next to each other at the large dining table, filled with curiosity about the supposed appearance of the food. Oliver says, "I've never experienced anything like this before, I'm really curious." A soft buzz emanates from a cabinet in the kitchen, and a drawer slides open slightly. Yuri pulls the drawer towards him and takes out 3 steaming plates, and the drawer closes itself silently, as if nothing had happened. Yuri walks to the table with the 3 plates and places them in front of Isabella and Oliver with the grace of a seasoned waiter. As he takes his seat, he looks at his new guests and asks, "So, did I cook well?" Isabella and Oliver laugh because they've never experienced anything like this before. Oliver says, "The aroma seems exactly the same to me when I compare it in my mind to back then in Leiden. What do you think, Isabella?" Isabella looks at her glass because she just took a sip of water and then gazes at Oliver and Yuri, saying, "This Mars water tastes incredibly delicious." Dear listeners, here we are allowing Oliver, Isabella, and Yuri to enjoy a peaceful meal in the year 4361, courtesy of the hut spot made by the dinner comp, while they take in a stunning view of the planet Mars. Hopefully, you have enjoyed this episode of Oliver the Time Traveler, and we look forward to having you back for the next one. Please like and subscribe to ensure you don't miss out on Oliver's adventures in the upcoming episode. Thank you for listening. Until next time.